cards right now, but some interesting choices. There is Swashbuckler in there, similar to what we just saw from Viper. There's also Vanessa Van Cleef, which I'm excited to see because I feel like it's a very interesting card that maybe we've not seen its full potential yet. But then, other than those couple of cards, it has Tenwu, it has Alex Straza, it has Jandis Kazakus and Mankrik, and then all the cheap rogue effects. So, you know, I'm kind of excited as we dive into game number 1, Sol, just to see what this version of rogue can do, because whenever these good rogue players, Bunnyhoppor, Casey, you know, so on, get together and make a deck, you have to at least look at it, because it's normally very good.
Yep, and we're seeing just kind of minor iterations on the list that was submitted last week. Like you mentioned, Vanessa Van Cleef and Goblin Org Merchant being 2 of them that are coming in. But certainly, you know, Casey and his practice group have been at the forefront of rogue deck building in particular for quite some time up at this point. Bozzzton up the other side on the Spell Mage, full tosses, looking for some of those power cards in his early hand. Absolutely does not find them, though. That is a slow and clunky looking opener here for Bozzzton.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? The one thing I will say is Combustion does a lot of work against Rogue, especially in the early game, and especially when it's one of the few cards early on that actually just kills Octo in one shot, which is a rarity at the moment. Right. Bunnyhoppor, yep, just wants to try and bank damage, yeah? You coin ping this minion.
Very nice. Bozzzton decides to coin the flow here, I guess, surmising that he can just ping on 2 and that will probably end up being a reasonable turn anyway.
Right.
Don't hate it.
Yeah, ping on 2 and then flex between Combustion and Arcane Intellect on 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best turn either from Bunny. He might just... yeah, I guess it's okay. I was trying to like map out the rest of his turns, and it's like, well, what does this card have to be to actually have a good turn 3 here?
I really like this counter spell. Just lines up so nicely, right? Like, your opponent is going to play like Ruined Orb or Ping usually this turn, right? Or like maybe a second flow. And then what do they want to do on turn 3? They want to cast Combustion to clear your board, which, you know, is something you'd like to prevent, or most punishingly, when they have their deck discounted, they want to play Arcane Intellect and start drawing cards. So the way that the counterspell lines up into that should look very nice, I think. Ooh.
Okay. So, question here, and I think it's a very good one. Can Bozzzton just play a Brain Freeze to not take 2 damage? Do you think that's too much of a throwaway attitude here?
I do, yeah. Obviously, it's going to pan out really nicely here because he can even use it to test the secret here if he would like to, which will be a really big deal for him. But even without that knowledge, I think, you know, Brain Freeze is just too valuable a card to be throwing away on 2/1s in the spot.
So many options.
It's always a play I really like, though, this Org Merchant on 1 from Bunnyhoppor, because it's banked 4 damage now. Like,
yep.
That's really good.
Job done.
Counterspell comes down. Bozzzton, as you mentioned, does have Brain Freeze to test, and with the quality of his hand, mainly Incanter's Flow.
Oh, lovely. Even
you
better.
actually like this?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I think 0 mana Brain Freeze is just too efficient, right? Like, if you need to deal with a field contact, if you need to stop some huge golem from hitting you in the face, like, at some point this matchup is going to come down to a race, right? Like, you're going to want to burn out the rogue, and they're going to be trying to get minions in play to pressure you back. So I do generally think that Brain Freeze is a more efficient card in the matchup.
What to do?
Yeah, it's more thinking of what the next couple of turns look like from Bozzzton. Maybe a cheap spell damage minion just to get on board would be nice. Maybe draws a card or something, but yeah, it's definitely not an easy choice. He is going to commit to it now.
Damage. Yeah, to use it to reduce damage right now. Allows him to have the greedier turn with the second Incanter's Flow.
And yeah, but with the tough choice as well, I wouldn't hate either of the two, the way I see it at least, which is Kazakus or Swashbuckler Swindle.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Kazakus with minion development.
Okay. Yeah. Just because like Kazakus with low hand count means that you're almost forced into playing it next turn, like almost no matter what.
Yep.
So then you have to build it as if you're going to play it next turn, and then it might not be as relevant if you don't end up playing it. I don't know. I feel like it's very straightforward couple of turns, which is fine if it's strong.
1 mana Netherwind Portal.
Seems good.
This is the juice now for Bozzzton, though. If he can find Refreshing Spring Water out of his deck, which is already double discounted, there it is immediately. Oh, it's a new level of caster cursing, Raven. You can actually just put it on the screen for posterity.
Yeah, caster curses with visual aids.
Yes. Obviously, that now straight up just generates mana for him. It has built-in innovates because it costs 2 and refreshes him 4. Stealth draw 2 is the golem for Bunny. Continues to pay heed to positioning. Stealth minion and big minion in the middle here, which plays around combustion as well as he can.
Yeah, and at least generally speaking, Bozzzton's safe from Bunnyhoppor Vanessaing his Refreshing Spring Water, just because of the nature of how that card works.
Yeah. It wouldn't end up being that good a card most of the time in Bunny's deck either, but still. Double font, okay. Unusual hand to be getting on with at this point.
I wonder if Bozzzton, if he's ever going to think about Vanessa, because it's such a weird thing that I don't think any Hearthstone player is used to playing around in sequencing of things.
I agree with that, yeah.
That, like, we've not trained ourselves to do it, right? It's not minion positioning, it's minion play order in the strangest way. Or card play order, should I say. Not even minion.
Yes. Particularly, you know, when there is like a best practice order of operations that every player's kind of drilled into themselves, that sometimes will just naturally end in playing the best card last. Which is something that you now have to think about specifically against Rogue, I suppose. But yeah, I think it might take some time before that one really gets hammered in.
It's even like, just I know myself as a player, if I was going to fireball something, I'd probably naturally do it last. Unless it's a taunt. You know what I mean, though? It's just the way I know I would play, but the way you'd obviously have to not play like that if you know Vanessa's a potential problem.
Yeah, so when your opponent's at 6, you play every other card in your hand first, right? And then emote 6 times, attack.
Someone did that to me
randomly.
Yeah. And it bothered me, so therefore it must have been the correct play.
Yeah.
I did put a message in our chat that I will not repeat about that person, but anyway.
Yes, you did.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Shadow Stack going to come down now. Bunnyhoppor saying, you know what? I'll take another stealth minion that can draw me cards. Seems good. And he's slowly pressuring Bozzzton here.
Again, pristine mechanics from Bunny, getting that positioning spot on again. Stealth minion dropped in the middle once more.
And the way it's worked out is that Bozzzton has a load of good stuff, but nowhere near enough mana to do it with.
Right. He obviously, Refreshing Spring Water was a nuts card there. Like, forget about it, you know? Like, draw 2 cards, gain 2 mana is a stupid card no matter what it does. However, when you have double flow discount, you almost turn into like prime Miracle Rogue if you get the right sequence of draws, right? If you can AI into Spring Water, into Cram Session, into Spring Water, into AI, and just like get the whole way through your deck while gaining mana all the time back from those Spring Waters, you can actually do ridiculous things. I think we saw it, I think it was in the Americas region last week, where I think it was Eddie, perhaps? No, I think it was Killing All Day, like just had lethal from like 24 with no cards in his hand just because he drew Refreshing Spring Water. And ended up missing it with the last card or something. It was a ridiculous thing, but you absolutely can do that with this deck.
One thing I'd like here is either some kind of minion development or to start using these cards, because there's double fireball, there's mask, there is all sorts of good stuff in Bozzzton's hand. So play it, get it out there, and try and set up some kind of lethal in the next few turns, because the damage is insane.
Third flow for 0 and an AI found off the top there for Bozzzton, which once again, I believe he still has 1 Refreshing Spring Water left in his deck. So he has the ability to put a lot of stuff together on this following turn. Still 2 Apexis Blast buried in that deck as well, which are going to cost 2 after this third Incanter's Flow is played.
There's a lot of emphasis on 2 there, Sol.
Give me that. Not what I want.
Bunnyhoppor going to take a quick pause and just think, how do I want to potentially end this turn? Oh, looking for a Plunderer, number 2.
Get it. Yeah, second Plunderer and obviously Shadow Step for the one that he has on board there with the 2 big outs to be able to clear the board. But now, finally, Bozzzton, who has been playing from behind just a little bit so far this game, is starting to get the advantage come to fruition of just how cheap and efficient everything in his deck is at this point.
He does need to start doing things, though. He is pretty behind on health. Obviously, another Incanter's Flow is insane. But he needs to start just pumping out damage somehow. Because also, as well, this Egwin plus the 2 Fireballs on turn 9 is a lot of damage as well.
It is, yeah. Guess is what leads him to this mask play. Like, this is good, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a 7 out of 10 Hearthstone turn. But, like, his deck costs -3, and he has a 1-mana Arcane Intellect in his hand and a 1 remaining Refreshing Spring Water in his deck, right? Like, the ceiling of what his turn could have been there was so high that I'm so tempted to just go for it. But Bozzzton just took the solid 7 out of 10 play, which I can't fault too much. I think he does pretty much have about all he needs in his hand to be able to get this game done.
Could potentially have, like, 1 Jandis turn between now and then the double Fireball.
Yeah.
Obviously depend on what Bunnyhoppor goes, or you could just go for Arcane Intellect and just open the box.
The big kicker here, though, which we are yet to talk about, is that Bunny does just have a random Tidal Wave on the far left of his hand. So if it is to just go all in on straight burn damage to the face, Bunny does have the ability to heal up, but there's also a question of how many minions are going to be in play to allow that to be a significant amount of healing. This now gets masked, because it was the second and last card played on the previous turn, yep. Nice.
I think you can always start with Intellect. Yeah, I like this. Just start with Intellect. Everything's realistically still an option. Just casually a 1-mana, Ring Toss, 4-mana Mask seems reasonable.
Yeah, devolve this board down, get the health as small as possible, rip Mask number 2, get some secrets in play, Ruined Orb face, discover something else. Hopefully it's another Arcane Intellect. Play that, draw 2 more cards. One of them's a Spring Water. You play that, draw both of the Apexis Blast, both go face, and that's lethal.
If anyone's listening and not watching, this is not happening. This is just Soul telling us a weird story at this point.
That was the line! What do you mean?
Time runs out on me.
Could go for Barrier there, but I wouldn't have hated Netherwind either.
Yeah, I think you just take the spell-based interactions as far as you can. Possibly Water Ellie there as well is not bad. Gonna save Orb for the spell damage synergy on the following turn. It seems fine.
Yeah, sure. Even without at this point, he's on 13. he's just dead anyway. But yeah, if the heal does come down. Yeah, we're gonna be in trouble here.
I think having gone this far down the rabbit hole, or the bunny hole, I guess, he's already lost his ability to heal, so he is just going to be facing down lethal no matter what he does. There was even like, position, I think.
Yeah, there was even like a Self-Alexstrasza, right, as an okay option. Obviously, he's afraid of Mirror Entity, potentially. Because he would have had to play it just straight.
Give me that. Not what I want. Efficient is sufficient.
Oh, that is going to be a nice game 1 going over to Bozzzton. Just too many discounts coming out. And you can see Bunny really didn't have access to his own ramp engine. The 2-mana Emperor Thaurissan that is an Octobot here really coming out to the party far too late.
Yeah, I think were they both in that passage then, and you just
I think so,
one? Yeah. So it's not as if he only got one okay one off. He just didn't get any reductions, and you can see he's punished because the good old double fireball Apexis blast finish. But yeah, it was a big deal as well because you got to think if some of these reductions hit, then maybe there was some kind of like even Alex self Tenwu. And then do something after, so there's still a level of burst available to Bunnyhoppor. So yeah, no reductions really cost him there, but I will say if you can triple Incanter's Flow a deck, then yeah, seems pretty powerful to me.
Honestly, at that point, even like Alex Yu, Tenwu, Alex Yu again, because Bozzzton was only hanging out at like, what, 19 health that game,
so,
right? So, like, you know, potentially counterpunching could have come out there with some wicked stabs as well if Bunny's hand had just got a little bit cheaper. But yeah, I think Bozzzton played that very nicely. I think there's one opportunity where maybe my greed would have got the better of me, and probably Bozton's line just ends up being better with the straight up 7-mana Mask of Cthulhu. But it just always feels like you're resigning yourself to mediocrity, right? When your deck is that cheap and you play a card for full cost that's in your hand already, it kind of feels like you've just given up on life at that point, you know, like live the dream, draw some cards. But I think
and lose
and lose, yeah. But I think Bozzzton had already mapped out at that point a very clear line with like the mask, the spell damage, the 2 fireballs that he had already, that he really didn't need that much extra damage at that point. And he had so much extra damage still stacked up in the deck with Runed Orb, double Apexis, and 1 mask still remaining, that he was just always going to go over the line, I think, if he played it safe there, which is fair enough.
Yeah, it's the kind of security just having that ridiculous like double 2-mana fireball in hand gives him, because you become, you know, almost like Face Hunter, right, where you start just working backwards from damage and just saying, well, what do I need to do to put him to 12 or, you know, X amount at any given turn, because the 2 fireballs are just there. It's not like, oh, I need to draw fireball and then I win. They're just in hand. So yeah, really nice game there from Bozzzton. Just going to give a quick check. I believe we are going to go into a rogue mirror. So we're going to see the same again from Bunnyhoppor, but we are going to get this, you know, stealth rogue, I guess, from Bozzzton from the previous meta. So we'll see how that pays off. One thing I can say is I don't think anyone was expecting to play against this, so maybe that's a point in Bozton's favour.
No, absolutely not. It is another deck of extreme noble heritage, all fitting on the left-hand side of the graphic there. 15 2-ofs, perfect deck building yet again. But yeah, very interesting deck, bit of a throwback. We are more used to seeing the Shank deck now instead, with all the poisons coming in and just that one weapon just getting enormous and also getting infinite durability. That deck, of course, does play self-sharpening as a backup option, just so you have multiple good weapon options to hit. But I guess since lack of pen flingers, maybe, was Bozton's thinking here, that he decided like the more minion-based option was more powerful now than the more spell-based version that synergized better with pen flingers going face repeatedly, which they can't do anymore. Maybe that was the line of reasoning. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm beating the dead horse here, but again, very limited time for players to submit their decks here, particularly in the European region where things lined up in the most unfortunate manner.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see how this rogue performs. I will say in its defense versus the like current weapon rogue, I guess, is that the current weapon rogue is so linear in the fact that you make a gigantic weapon and swing every turn, is that like even a regular sized taunt minion can actually really mess you up, because a lot of the time you need like exact removal tools to kill them so you can swing face, and if not, that's a whole massive swing of damage just wasted, I'll say, on a taunt. So like there's some drawbacks, I think, to that deck, although I do think Cloak of Shadows is absolutely disgusting. And just I don't know. I'm surprised it's flown under the radar for this long, but let's dive into this rogue matchup here. Bozzzton currently leading this series 1-0 and could do with the victory here with this rogue, and Sol does have access to a pretty good opening even before we see card number 3.
Yeah, for sure. I do wonder about, you know, the options that Vanessa Van Cleef offers here for Bunnyhoppor. Just, you know, potentially, if your opponent is going to play Self-Sharpening Sword on 3, which is probably the #1 thing you lose to, can you then just get one yourself and just start racing back, plus having, you know, the more efficient minions arguably in play with the style of deck that you're playing? I think that might be a pretty interesting scenario if it does come up here, and Bunny does hold on to the Vanessa, so we'll see where this one goes.
Yeah, and with coin and double 1-drop, he can do this very easily on multiple different turns, right? Like, he has this available to him no matter what. What I really want to see is Sinister Strike now, and then Bunnyhoppor coin Vanessa to get Strike, and then just respond. Now that is real Hearthstone, guys.
Nutty. I don't hate it. Like, I honestly don't think pressing Sinister Strike here is wrong. Like, I know, obviously, the more vanilla play is just to play the minion, which is what Bozzzton ends up doing, but, you know, arguably Prize Plunderer is one of the most valuable cards in the deck because it is one of your only real removal tools. You know, as Raven was just talking about with just, like, getting locked out by taunt minions, Prize Plunderer is one of the few things that can do that. But I think just, you know, developing tempo here, 2-1 in play, is probably the most reasonable thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you summed it up perfectly with it's the vanilla play, and let's be honest, who orders vanilla? I did get Sinister Striked just on turn 1 the other day, and I couldn't help but just nod in respect to my opponent.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? I actually hope you win. I'm not going to throw, but I hope you win.
So I've been playing a lot of Face Hunter for the last 2 days, and I have genuinely done the blackout at least once. Arcane Shot Face on turn 1.
What a throwback!
So in my hand, I'm like,
literally no one will get.
No, I was just looking at my hand like, well, I've got no minion to play. This Arcane Shot's going face eventually anyway. Spend
your
my mana. Yeah.
There are some options now for Bunnyhoppor. That is honestly an interaction that hadn't really crossed my mind till now, but this into Vanessa feels very strong. And again, you could say, oh, Raven, that's obvious. I'm like, right, but it's not like I play tons of Vanessa Rogue right now. So, yeah, this is kind of cool. It's just more stats on board, right?
God, Raven, that's so obvious.
Jeez.
So I guess the keep was just, you know, for straight up efficiency, really, from Bunny. Just having a River Croc to play that can do some nice things for him, which is very reasonable, I suppose. I would have liked to have seen him draw Shadow Step this time.
Yeah, I was just
see what would
about to
happen.
say, if he drew Shadow Step, that weapon is the fastest equipped thing in the West. Would have been so good.
So many options.
Options. I mean, he has a reasonable hand to actually just play Octo here, and then maybe the book if he wants.
You want to cast a spell?
Just because reducing both Kazakus and Jandis seem pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Oh, and refreshing Spring Water. Now that becomes, instead of it being mediocre, because obviously it's in a minion deck, like 3 mana draw 2, maybe gain some mana. Seems good.
Secret Passage here for Bozzzton. If he can just pick up any stealth minion, that'll be fine, because his natural hand has a Greyheart Sage in it. Wow, that is not ideal. I mean, I guess you do it?
Pick the walk.
Sure. Prep double poison. Seems good.
Yeah, I mean, that worked out very well, but he could have just gone for the poison with cutting class anyway, right?
Yep.
But yeah, why not?
Bunny.
Why not just have it all, Sol? Why not have it all?
Bunny's devolving face as he watched that turn progress was fantastic. He saw Passage, he's like, oh, Passage, that kind of sucks. Saw a hesitation, he's like, oh, maybe it's a bad Passage. Then one by one, as the cards got played, he just got more and more miserable.
He's not just a good Hearthstone player, Sol. He's an entertainer.
He is. Just an obnoxious amount of damage now. Next swing goes for 6, then 7, then 8. So already built in, that's what, 21 damage just from this weapon?
How crazy would you go if it came down to Bozzzton being 1 mana off being able to play Sinister Strike for least?
I'd never let him hear the end of it, Raven.
He does have to, you know, toe that line, right, where he can't completely just ignore the board. Because the damage, you know, there's an extent where Bunnyhoppor can race, especially after seeing Kazakus now. He's going to be a little bit afraid. Show some respect.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Prize Plunderer number 2. You just rip it here. Just like prep, stab, Prize Plunderer the 3/3, smash face.
Could he not just prep Sinister Strike to save the stab, or are you just not estimating?
Is this game going... Do you think this Wicked Stab's going to upgrade again, Raven? I think the game's going that long?
Well, what did he pick from Golem, right? Because if there's Lifesteal Rush...
He has Lifesteal Summon a copy.
Right.
which is maybe a consideration, right? Maybe Bozzzton just doesn't even want to use the prize plunder at this turn because he potentially wants to use it to deal with Golem on the following turns.
It's why it's tough, right? Because if it was, if Kazakus has just been played, right? So you are in auto 5-mana Golem expectation mode. So and what's Bunnyhoppor going to go for? Lifesteal, Rush, 2 offs. It's not rocket science. So I do like at least some consideration for this Golem. When a deck's going to start playing their Broom again, Sol, so you don't have to pick Rush for the Golems. Is that the next stage of evolution?
Yeah, could be. Could be. Broom does need to make a comeback. That is far too good a card to not be being played right now. How much is this? 11, 15, 18 currently being shown? So I imagine we play Prep and then 1 Thief to look for lethal outs before we do anything else. I guess Swindle also looks for lethal outs. Yeah.
He can... Could he get anything here? It would actually fit. Wait, does spell damage get him there if he gets a 0 cost?
I mean, he can't, right? He can't get Lab Partner.
Oh yeah, and there's no others, is there? Yeah, of course it'll cost 1. Oh no, he can still cast though, right?
This does 5, this does 4. Yeah, but it's still
off,
short.
yeah.
So he just used, but the spell damage is huge because it allows him to cleanly kill 1 golem, then he prize plunders the other golem, smash his face with everything, and then he just has 8 plus the Sinister Strike next turn. Which is perfect, right? Yeah, 8 plus the Sinister Strike, GG. Yeah, right, this is a super clean turn.
Jandis, we know you were nerfed, kind of.
Whoa. Nothing.
Pretty sure that's just going to be game number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's game number 2 on board, right? Because Bunnyhoppor just can't trade into everything. Oh, he needs 1, okay.
He needs 1.
He could have pre-banked this Sinister Strike. He might not have needed it. Yeah, that is
an extra damage. He has a Blood Mage Thalnos on board. What are you talking about?
The long-term planning, I like it. Bozzzton taking game number 2 over Bunnyhoppor. And you know, it was a strange choice. That's not even a dig at Bozzzton in any way. Playing it almost exactly a deck from before an expansion came out or a big rotation happened is still a strange choice, but it's paying off. It's like we said, it's that aggro style, the weapon style, but with the minion backup, which the current newer versions of weapon don't really have minion backup. They play the odd minion here and there, but they're not really there to push damage. They're there to do a small job here and there. So again, Bozzzton making it work, and now he's only got Hunter left, Sol.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor went for his out there with the Jandis at the end, which, you know, might seem like a scramble. It's actually not that unlikely. I think it's like 18% for a taunt minion per minion, and obviously you get 2 rolls at that, so it's actually not that unlikely to get taunts there. And one of them is Scrap Golem, which is Death Rattle give armor as well. So yeah, you can see Bunny now deep in the tank, upset about his Jandis minions. Just really did not have much game there at all.
And look at his hand. What else was he going to do, right? Even if you disrespect the potential of Jandis, well, what was the play that saves him from the weapon and potentially even just the minions putting him to 1, and then he just dies the turn after, even if there's no lethal and it's all relying on board. So, you know, he went for it. It did not work, and it does mean now Bozzzton only has this Hunter left to get a win with. And I know, I think both of us were looking at, but I think you replied there. It was Xiao T has recently posted a new Hunter list, which is aggro, you know, face Hunter, with some pretty big differences. And although it's not this list, it does include that Scavenger's Ingenuity, which feels like it should be a card and then fell off very quickly, and now looks like it might be making a comeback once again.
Yeah, I messaged this in our Discord as well, but it feels like we're almost heading back to the days of remember when there was Face Hunter, Mid-Range Hunter, and Hybrid Hunter? There was the 3 different builds that all played very similar cards, but were 5 or 6 cards different. You know, it feels like you have these builds of Face Hunter, which is what Bozzzton is playing, and the kind of the Warsong Wrangler list that's very popular on ladder now as well. There's a Mid-Range Hunter that plays the True Aim Crescent and plays some Greedier Beasts as well, and plays Posts, for example, which is the Mid-Range Hunter equivalent. And then I think what Zhao Ti posted recently, arguably one of the very best players in the world from the China region, if you people at home are not familiar with him, incredibly well-respected player with a great track record of tournament and ladder behind him. He posted a list which is kind of the hybrid between the two as well. So it almost feels like we're heading back to those Halcyon days of the 3 different hunters all being competitively viable, Raven.
Bit disappointed you didn't mention Leoric's Hunter in there as a competitively viable deck, but, you know, whatever. We'll get to
Do you know you actually have baited streamers into playing your deck with that tweet you made
great.
that like did really well? It's so bad. I've never seen a worse deck in my life. It's terrible.
Token Druid. Moving on.
All right, no, you got me there. Fair.
Bunnyhoppor, this is the mage we were talking about earlier, and I think is, for me, it doesn't feel like the 30 cards, so to speak, but it does feel like it has some way to go there. I think there's a good idea here that the cards actually, you do a really good job of tempo, especially against like small minion focused decks. I think it's very good. You have tons of removal. I played this, not this exact list, I played Luna's actually against Druid a few times, a token Druid, and I destroyed them. Like, it wasn't even close. So again, I think that although this might not be an all-rounder, I think if you're aiming at certain pockets here, I think this deck can be very, very strong.
Yeah, spell damage shooting star is a hell of a drug, right? If you're going to come up against token Druid. But I think also this matchup that we're going to see specifically, I think up against Face Hunter, just having some minions in your deck is a really, really big deal because Spell Mage has to fight Face Hunter from off board, which is nearly impossible, right? Like, it almost doesn't matter how efficient your burn spells are, they're not going to beat minions staying alive for multiple turns, right? So it's not a race that you can ever win. But just being able to get some minions in play, just efficient minions, just play a 1/3 on turn 1, right? Which Bunnyhoppor has the ability to do here with Lab Partner. That actually gives you the opportunity to counter race against Face Hunter, because as Mage, that's absolutely what you need to do. You cannot survive the Face Hunter onslaught in the way that like a priest can. You have to counter race.
To like maybe oversimplify it, this deck that Bunnyhopper's playing plays all the cards you want in against aggro matchups from Spell Mage and replaces all the ones you don't with good minions. So it's like it can do really, really well against some of these board focus. But the Intrepid Initiate coming down early for Bozzzton, and Bozzzton got hold of a pretty good opening, and I think this for me is the question that we may see answered soon if people keep playing this type of aggressive hunter is, how does Scavengers fit in the deck and when do you play it? Because I think it is not so simple. Of course, Felmore on 2 seems great, but then after that, things start to get a little bit blurry in terms of when you play Ingenuity.
Yeah, I personally don't like it. I personally prefer just playing Warsong Wrangler in the deck instead, which is obviously a more expensive way of doing something similar. But you get to control which beast you get, first and foremost, which is huge, because a lot of the times you are in spots where, like, well, it's a 50-50. If I get this beast, I'm really happy. If I get this beast, I'm really sad, right, when you play Scavenger's Ingenuity. But most importantly, it's just a minion. It's not something you have to, like, set 2 mana on fire to play and not pressure your opponent with. It's a minion. It's a 4 mana 3/4. It's not a great minion, but it represents pressure. So I personally like that list a lot more than this Scavenger's Ingenuity build. But again, we will see what the philosophy is right now for Bozzzton.
For me, it's all about mana cost, honestly. Like, where do you fit this 2 mana in when you want to be hero powering, you know, like, and so on. So I think it's very, very in depth where players will have to go to work out whether it's correct or not. But here, though, Bunnyhoppor is going to have to start fending this off quickly. He does have Firebrand Coin next turn as an option, or he could have Firebrand Coin and then whatever comes from One Maker. So, although he's going to take a lot of damage, I think I double Lab Partner this turn.
Kind of into that as well. Curious why Bunnyhoppor is so eager to go Wand Maker here, because I think Firebrand, I guess Firebrand Coin devolving missiles is particularly awkward, right? Yeah,
he wants something that isn't devolving to cast from Firebrand, but I think the 1/3s make up for that. I think the benefit of having 1/3s on the board, like, what does Bozzzton do against 2 1/3s right now outside of Demon Companion?
Oh, it says explode!
Yeah, I like this.
Oh, it says explode!
Easiest collect of your life, Bozzzton. I mean, okay, still helps a little bit.
Second best, yeah. Problem now is if you full trade with the 4-2 and then the 2-1 and the 1-1, you leave exactly 4 health left in play, and then you want to play Imprisoned Felmore, which doesn't count towards Firebrand, so you would just get immediately swept by Firebrand coin on the other side.
I wonder.
Yeah, so all face Felmore is what we're talking about right now. I'm not even joking.
No, I know. Yeah. I think that might actually be the play.
Because the way you path out the turn, right, is Felmore this turn, all face, push max damage, Ingenuity into hopefully Rhino next turn with hero power at worst. And that might actually be better. And then you have a buffed Rhino, hopefully again, to kill whatever minions that Bunnyhoppor's definitely played, because he's playing a deck with a lot of minions and he will have probably gained board by then.
Yep, I like it. Bozzzton is going to trade. There is, a possibility that we have some fairly severe caster vision in this position where we're staring at the Firebrand, but I honestly do like the all-face plan.
I have found that a lot of the time, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kind of good with Hunter, yet I disagree with every play I see a pro player make, and I'm like, I have to start questioning myself late at night thinking, am I okay at Hunter or is something wrong? So we'll see how that pans out here. But Bunnyhoppor didn't get or didn't go for, should I say, the other 1-cost spell. And I guess he just floats the mana and he's okay with it because there's Felmore, right?
Yep.
Well, Scavenger's Hero Power, let's go.
You mean you don't want to make your Marcel Cover 4/4 this turn?
Nope, because I can't play it this turn.
No, exactly.
Yeah, if there's one more mana, we can definitely talk. But I think
if he scavenges first and hit the other Wolpertinger, would you just play it? Whoa! Okay, was not expecting that one.
Jeez. Okay. Oh, I just feel like it's missed 2 damage.
By not hero powering that turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
1 extra damage to buff a 1-drop. Then he has to play, then get to live, and then hit face. But I'm not really a huge fan of Scrap Shot in the deck anyway, so again, that might be just my bias taking over of the card. But again, Bozzzton's going to have to pull a plan out, because the issue right now is the next turn, if he Ingenuity's into a Rhino, well, he just can't play it. So then it's like Ingenuity X something, hero power maybe. Very, very tricky.
Yeah, worst case scenario, he can Ingenuity, hero power, and play his 1-mana 4/4 next turn, right? Just a big deal. Face? No, okay.
You really wanted face with that Felmore?
Yep. I think you skipped the Ingenuity another turn here? No, okay. Alright, hits the Wolpertinger. I can only imagine if he is... Yeah, I can only imagine if he's playing the Ingenuity this turn, he is skipping the Felmore this turn. I guess he could now, having hit the Wolpertinger, go Wolpertinger Felmore and skip the hero power this turn. That's also very fine.
So many hero powers. My problem is, so, okay, this is good because it gets the Felmore on the board. Right? And that's what you want. You want it on the board early, it attacks earlier. Great. But what if like he just draws like a 1-drop next turn, and then it's 1-drop hero power pass? I think that's my worry of not hero power. Like next turn, he can always, at worst, go 2-drop, buffed Marcel Cup, hero power again, and then he's managed hero power twice in 2 turns. So I think this second Felmore, if it came down a turn later, it's still going to attack this game, because it's not fast. Good positioning, though, because he knows his opponent plays Shooting Star, so that was very nice positioning. You always pick Egwin.
Well, this might just be the one matchup where it's too slow, even though it is kind of the basis of a lot of the way the deck is built.
It's the fact that I just love getting the 2 Egwins in the pool, because then you just draw 1 card plus 4 spell damage, and you're like,
yep. Oh my god, okay.
It feels godlike.
I mean, if anyone knows, it's Bunny. Bunny has full information as to how the game is going here as well. because he knows that that card in hand is the buffed Marcel Cub. Hero Power first, play your 2 1-drops. Bank the discount for next turn. No real decisions this turn. Apart from where to position your minions. Which I think is fine.
Oh, the dream. Probably going to wait till next turn to devolve on the Felmor. So this just plus Shooting Star looks really good.
Yep. Just don't take 4 this turn. Seems very difficult for Bunny to lose this game from this position. This has to start by going face, surely. Okay.
This draw needs to be insane.
Not sure that qualifies.
Definitely not. I wish you could choose when to use the 0 mana hero power and be like, no, I'll pay for it this turn, I've got the cash.
Can I just start a hero power tab, please?
Oh, second A-Win Shooting Star. It should just blow up the hero portrait at this point.
Yep.
It's so ridiculous.
I mean, obviously this has been a pretty trashy draw from Bozzzton. I do also think he's built his deck in a fairly trashy way, which is inclined to have more trashy draws than some other ways you can build it. But first test for Bunnyhoppor's, weird spell damage minion mage, it's passed with flying colors, right? Like, I think genuinely this is still a draw that Spell Mage could have lost to, right? Because far more minions would have hit face in the early game. The Firebrand wouldn't have been there to clear up the Intrepid Initiate. Every point of damage would have just been hitting face. The Felmors would have all been hitting face because there'd be no minions to attack on the other side, right? So it's definitely a real thing.
Yeah, well, 100%. Like I said, in all the tests I did with a slightly different list for some of it, I found that anything that was small minion focused of aggro, you just cleaned up so easily. Yeah, okay. Well. Did not look good for game number 3 for Bozzzton, of course. Still leading the way there, but we'll say went very, very well for Bunnyhoppor, just getting the minions out nice and early. And honestly, when you see, he actually just had devolving missiles all game there, right? And he could have just snapped away any board at any given time, because obviously the nature of Face Hunter, you're not playing high cost minions, so it's not even often you can like high roll someone devolving missiles in you. So pretty easy one there for Bunnyhoppor, honestly. So Bozzzton's got to do it again, and this time he's got either Warlock or Rogue to go against.
Yeah, and like I said, the Warlock, I think, does have a few extra nods to anti-aggro in there with those Void Drinkers that can come down as huge taunts early, which I think can be a very, very big deal. But the Rogue, yeah, not so much. Vanessa Van Cleef, is that a tech inclusion that's going to help you out against aggro? I mean, it is an extra River Croc that you can play out early in the game, which I guess is relevant. We saw that be relevant earlier. But I think it's 2 pretty interesting matchups left to go. I think if this was, if this was evolved Face Hunter, if this was Face Hunter rank 2 or Face Hunter rank 3, if it had leveled up, I think I'd be fully backing Bozzzton here to come out of this with a win against either of these decks. But I do think he has a bit of an outdated and suboptimal list, so that might make him struggle a little bit, but I think he still has to feel in the driver's seat, right? Like, his lineup is doing what he's intending it to do right now, is just be aggressive and beat people up.
And I think that game very easily displayed the strengths and weaknesses of Ingenuity. It's 2 mana, it's more playable, it's cheaper than Warsong, but I'm pretty sure Bozzzton would have preferred a Rhino over the Warpatingers there. So you don't get to pick with Ingenuity, right? Whereas the power of Warsong is you can take exactly what you want because the choices, unless you've drawn them obviously, always the same. Like, it's the Rhino or the Warpatinger most of the time. So like that, having that choice is the power of paying a little bit more mana and gaining a minion attached to it. So suddenly it starts to maybe stack up in that Warsong favor if you just look at maybe a general strength basis. So it's interesting to see how it goes here.
And it's also the buff all copies, the Cthulhu wherever they are language, right? Because there's opportunities that I missed for like the first maybe 5 to 10 games of playing the deck, which didn't really dawn on me, where I'd have Warpatingers still in play from turn 1 and then play my Warsong Wrangler. And then I think I missed it at least once, whereas if you pick the Warpatinger, you buff the Warpatingers on board and they go face for more damage. So it's just a much more flexible card that has a bunch more tricks up its sleeve. And I think that has evolved even further now with Xiaoti's list that we were were just talking about, where he also adds in Zigsaw. So you now have the option, right, of the tempo option with the Wolpertinger, the damage option with the Rhino, or the value option with the Zigsaw. You kind of have all bases covered, and again, because it's a discover option, you actually get to choose as opposed to just leaving it up to fate with Scavenger's Ingenuity. So I do think it's a deck that a direction that the deck will continue to evolve in. Thank you. I talk for a living, unbelievably. But yeah, I do think it's a direction the deck will continue to evolve in, because I think it's the right way to do it. But again, Bozzzton still has Face Hunter, it still deals damage, it still has a hero power, it still draws damage off the top, and it absolutely can still get there against these decks that Bunny has.
And as ever, right, like we are very early in the meta, especially when we had a pretty significant patch only a few days ago, but because of where Hunter's at right now, with some of the powerful tools it has access to, the build will flex with the meta, of course, right? So depending on how people are building these decks, it will change what's good and what's bad. So, it will be fun to see how that continues. It does look like, if my information is correct, that Bunnyhoppor is going to be playing his Warlock, which I'm actually excited to see, can see how it does, because it does have those 2 Void Drinkers, the Talon 4-Drink in there, 1 Siphon Soul as well, just for the extra spot removal, but mainly if it comes up in this matchup, it'll just be yay 3 health. And still enough soul fragments, because still 2 School Spirits, still 2 Soul Shears, Spirit Jailers, Armor Vendors, it's all still there. When I look at this, it feels like I'm looking like a 32 card deck list, because everything I'm glancing at is still there for the Warlock, yet there's 2 Void Drinkers in there as well, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like 1 Ogremancer, 1 Siphon Soul, 1 Twisting Nether, right? Like, a lot of the time people are playing 2 copies of 1 or 2 of those cards, and that's where the spots are being found for those Void Drinkers. But yeah, I'm really very much looking forward to this matchup. And I like that you point out the Siphon Soul healing for 3 thing, because obviously relevant with Classic Hearthstone very recently being released. Handlock was probably my favorite deck in Classic Hearthstone, my favorite deck until Patron Warrior came out, probably. And I just remember back in the day the feeling of like, yes, Siphon Soul, I get to heal for 3 against Face Hunter. This is fantastic. And now, like, here we are 6 years in the future, and it's like Blade Master Samuro, Apotheosis, full Reno Jackson up to 30 health. Like, where is this game 30, gone?
The heal card sucks, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's dive straight into it. Bozzzton with a fairly quick mulligan. So quick, I'll be honest, I did not see what it was. Bunnyhoppor, though, with, I imagine, all this but the Armor Vendor sticking around here.
That's not the opener he's looking for either. Needs a 1-drop off the top to get this hand started. He does not want to have to track on 1. He's going to have to track on 1, Raven.
I love tracking so much now. Mystery track.
Oh yeah, I love the new tracking update as well. 1 mana, crash the broadcast. Yeah, love it. Fantastic card.
So he's almost certainly not going to pick Rhino. Headhunter Hatchet is kind of a problem because he's not got a way to proc a beast. Wait, he picks Rhino.
I was going to say, are you sure he doesn't pick Rhino?
I don't think so.
Rhino's a good card.
Does he not want to Ingenuity into Rhino, though? It's just a 5/5. Who plays those Rhinos?
But he doesn't guarantee that. That's the problem with his deck, right? Like, if you can tell
me to get better at playing Ingenuity, then.
Yeah.
We'll always hit Rhino against Warlock.
I wonder. Almost out of time.
It's also worth noting that he does play Scrap Shot as well, right? So having it in his hand isn't necessarily the worst thing.
True.
It's not strict downside like it is in the other. Actually, I mean, it's not strict downside in the other version of the deck. If you draw 1 and then you discover the other, you still have 2 buffed Rhinos in your hand. Like, that's still really good.
And one kind of weird problem when you look at the list is like, oh, what's their turn 5? Okay, 4/5. Oh wait, he gains 3/3 and has pawn, and I have a 5/5 Rhino.
Yeah. Oh,
what's his other 5-drop? Talon? Oh, yeah, that's a bit of a problem as well.
Ogremancer? How much health does that have? 7, you say? Oh, it's a bit awkward.
So what you're saying is I need to Scavenger's Ingenuity into my second Rhino.
If only there was some way in my deck to make this a 7/6 instead. That seems more powerful.
Oh, he does get the Wolpertinger though, so he's going to pile a little bit more pressure onto this board, and a good time as well, because clearly this Soul Share only deals with 1 of them, and the Felmor's about to proc, so not too bad at all, honestly.
Yeah, potentially pretty big damage coming in now, especially now with Scrap Shot drawn as well. He has, Knife Fender, Scrap Shot, and Rhino to come over the next 3 turns, and the potential for like even 10 plus damage just to go face on the next turn. This has ramped up very, very quickly for Bozzzton.
What if he coins Cascading? Is that madness?
Why would you do that?
We can keep all the Soul Share, maybe like the. So the slight worry is if I guess there's a lot of ifs, but if he just draws the fragments too early, then 1, he can't activate the Void Drinkers, and 2, he could heal for nothing. And the Cascadings normally aren't great, and it just kills off one of them anyway. It does use the coin up, which is obviously the massive downside.
I'm going to be honest, Raven. Even for you, that was nonsense.
Thank you.
Oh, the pause broke my heart. I was like, oh, did I actually upset him there?
No.
Bad.
You know it takes more. Scrap Shot
I do, but that's why I was surprised that you just didn't have a comeback.
Scrap Shot is available for Bozzzton now, but again, it's that weird turn, isn't it, where you can't Scrap Shot and then gain a reward from it, because if he hits the Volpting, he'd love to play it, but
yeah.
But does he just play Knife Fender? It's just a minion. I think he should play it.
Yeah, you've always got in situations like this when you're aggro deck against Priest or Warlock, you have to look at, do I actually make my board worse against Hysteria by developing more minions? And the answer to that right now is no, not really, because your board is just perfectly ruined by Hysteria right now anyway. So I kind of just like playing more minions here with the Knife Fender. I'm on board. However, if he plays the Scrap Shot and hits, obviously on the Rhino, that's a really big deal for the next turn, right? Especially if it's going to be like Coin Argomancer or something.
So what you're saying is you should play Wobbliting at this turn and pass. Then he should play Scrap Shot to make sure he lands on the Rhino, and then play the Rhino.
No, that is absolutely not what I said. Oh, the Void Drinker draw.
Yeah. It is live as well, because he didn't go for my play.
Yes. Coins it out now. He now corrupts both Cascading Disasters, which Raven wanted to use as 4 mana Soul Shears earlier. I'm still confused as to what you were talking about, but here we are. But this is a pretty good Scrap Shot clear, right? Scrap Shot plus the Felmore pushes through, and it doesn't really matter which one you hit at this point. You're fairly happy either way.
Oh, I think I still would have played the Wolpertinger there. First, I mean.
Really? I mean, you just get to play it now as 2 4/4s. That's insane, isn't it?
I guess it's good with versus Hysteria. I'm just worried if this Rhino is going to achieve anything in its life.
It's got big aspirations, Raven. It'll get there. The Dreamer is shooting for the stars. Gotta just play Cascading, right?
Yeah.
No other option. Kills 2, did get corrupted last turn by the Void Drinker. It means he's taking up to another 8 damage on this turn.
Oh, he missed.
Oh, that's the max!
Could tell just by Bunnyhoppor's reaction that he completely missed that one. It was a full head tilt.
Piercing shot? Interesting. So I kind of want to save Adorable Infestation right now, so you can go Adorable Infestation. I guess you have Wound Prey as well, right?
You save Wound Prey because you can always cast it, right?
Because you can always cast it. Yeah. You are correct, yeah.
The Rhino's time to shine?
It's garbage against Hysteria, though. That's the problem, right? Hysteria is a full clear at that point.
He could just Infestation the 4/4, right?
True.
Which makes it not necessarily a full clear.
It's never a full clear at that point, right?
Oh, because the 1/1, yeah.
The 1/1, yeah.
Yep. I was just counting the buff.
Quickly.
It can still be very bad.
Like, yeah, okay. So he gains 2 damage if he plays this. Hysteria would be a full clear now anyway.
So don't you just like wound prey face hero power and just hold the 1/1 in your hand at this point? Don't you?
You can do
lethal with piercing shot.
Yeah.
Kind of like that line, honestly.
As long as you have a 1/1 guaranteed for piercing shot, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like Wound Prey Hero Power there, and then you hold on to the remaining 1/1 that you have for the Piercing Shot next turn. Then you have 7 mana for one mana, then Piercing Shot, then Hero Power on the following turn.
Yep, agreed. I think, yeah, the only reason that was Wound Prey was being held initially was because it wasn't guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the board was cleared. But now it is.
It certainly looks like, obviously, we were hotly debating the lines on that previous turn, but I think the quality of Bunny's hand is so poor that it's not going to end up mattering.
I mean, Yashiraj, Draxus, Militia, Twisted Nether, 2 strong men. Not the opening, well, not the opening hand, but not the hand you want on turn 6 of a game against a Face Hunter. So congratulations to Bozzzton there. He got the job done. And the lineup's working. So again, you know, however much, and I'm sure Bozzzton will completely ignore, you know, us questioning this Hunter list, but however much we look at the lineup, it's working, and you know, you can't truly argue with results. So big congratulations to him. I do feel like this is a big win. Not only him taking the victory and obviously moving on to tomorrow, but also knocking Bunnyhoppor out of tomorrow, because, you know, that's one person I'd like to get less points than me per week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to look at it, right? It's like the, do you deliberately grief Rafarm or Ragnaros in a game of Battlegrounds, right? Like, are you more concerned about just gathering points yourself or ruining everyone else's points? And I think there is